Now, there was a rumor around this time that there was a $1 million bounty on your head.
$1 million bounty. Members folding under pressure and telling on their own people. The feds pulling receipts nobody ever thought would see daylight. Texts, flight records, credit card trails, everything. The street's been whispering for years, but now the government has the paperwork to back it all up. This is the full breakdown. The alleged $1 million hit. So run this back and listen close, because what we're about to dive into is some of the wildest, most shocking information ever to surface out of the rap game. And that's on everything. There are moments in hip-hop history that don't just make headlines. They permanently change the direction of the culture. The night of November 6, 2020, outside Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta, was one of those moments. King Von, born Davon Bennett, lost his life during a confrontation that spiraled into a deadly shootout involving multiple people from both sides. And now, years later, federal prosecutors are officially alleging that the fallout from that night went even further. A $1 million bounty was supposedly placed on Quando Rondo as retaliation. According to court documents filed in January 2026, investigators claim this plot traces back to 2022, when Lil Durk allegedly put up the money. The allegation appeared in a second supplemental memorandum filed on January 23, 2026, in U.S. District Court, and once that paperwork hit the public, everything changed. The news sent immediate shockwaves through the entire hip-hop community, with everyone from bloggers to the block breaking it down and debating what it all really meant. This was the most concrete financial detail to surface in a case that had already been making national headlines, grabbing attention from the West Coast to the East Coast and everywhere in between. And that $1 million bounty wasn't just some random figure the feds threw out for shock value or clicks. Prosecutors allege it was part of a calculated, well-organized operation, communicated through intermediaries who made it clear to potential shooters that anyone who got it done would be made straight. In street terms, that meant a massive payout and long-term financial security. According to court documents, DeAndre Muop Wilson is named as a key figure in the alleged plot, the one spreading the word about the bounty and helping put together a crew willing to travel to Southern California to carry out the hit. The alleged plot reached its breaking point on August 19, 2022, in what prosecutors describe as a meticulously planned hit carried out with military-style precision. According to investigators, 3 shooters riding in a white sedan pulled up on a black Cadillac Escalade at a Beverly Grove gas station near the Beverly Center in Los Angeles and unloaded more than a dozen rounds without hesitation. The intended target was Quando Rondo. Yet, somehow, by sheer luck or divine intervention, depending on what you believe, Rondo walked away without a single injury. His cousin, Surveyor Lopab Robinson, wasn't as fortunate. He was struck during the ambush and later died from his injuries at the hospital. An innocent life was lost that night, while the alleged target survived. In the aftermath, Lil Tim, Quando's close friend and right-hand man since the fallout from the Atlanta incident, spoke publicly about the rumored bounties circulating in the streets and the weight of knowing there was allegedly a price on his head.
No, all right, let me get to the bottom.
No, listen.
The whole situation that happened
Listen, man,
with Quando.
How we live and how we go by our and I'm speaking for the whole Chicago. You ain't there. Shut the fuck up. You weren't there. So you made a diss and said something about Vaughn. That's why I don't with you. You ain't did you.
The receipts and evidence federal investigators have compiled in this case are staggering, far more extensive than anyone expected. Prosecutors allege that iCloud messages recovered from Durk's devices and shared with co-defendants include warnings like "don't book no flights under no names with me," suggesting an awareness of secrecy and the need to stay off the radar. Bank records allegedly show credit card being used to cover flights, rental vehicles, and hotel rooms for shooters who travel from Chicago to Los Angeles to carry out the attack. According to the government, there is a paper trail for nearly everything, financial receipts that allegedly connect Durk's entire operation to the attempted assassination in a way that's difficult to dismiss. But the allegations grow even more serious when prosecutors describe what supposedly happened after the hit failed. They claim Durk rewarded participants with items of value under federal motor for hire statutes, including cash payments, custom jewelry and grills, music video appearances, and lyrical shout-outs in songs released after the shooting. The government argues these rewards fulfilled the bounty agreement and completed the criminal transaction, even though the intended target survived. And it doesn't stop there. Federal informants have testified under oath that Durk allegedly maintained active bounties on 6 or 7 additional rivals he was feuding with at the time, including individuals identified in court documents as Duke and Rachel. Prosecutors say this paints a disturbing picture of OTF not simply as a record label, but as a hybrid criminal enterprise that allegedly used the music industry as a front for coordinated street activity and violence against rivals. On October 24, 2024, Durk was arrested by U.S. Marshals in Broward County, Florida, along with 5 affiliated members, Kayvon London Grant, DeAndre Dantrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, and Asa Houston. According to federal court filings, the charges they are facing are no joke and carry consequences heavy enough to end everything. Conspiracy to commit murder for hire, use of interstate facilities in a murder plot resulting in death, and firearm possession during a violent crime causing death. Each count alone is serious, but together they are devastating. If Durk were to be convicted, he could be looking at life in federal prison with no chance of release. His freedom, his career, and everything he built from the ground up would be wiped out completely. What really sank his chances of bail, though, were prosecutors' claims that he was actively attempting to flee the country at the time of his arrest. According to the government, flights had allegedly been booked to Dubai, Switzerland, and Italy, which they argued showed clear intent to evade prosecution. That alleged attempt to leave the country became a major factor in the judge's decision to deny bail and keep him detained while awaiting trial. The situation grew even more serious when the case was tied to a second alleged murder for hire plot. Court filings from December 2024 connected Durk to the fatal shooting of Stephon Mack in Chicago, which prosecutors used to further argue that he posed a significant flight risk and should remain in federal custody. Before his arrest, Durk had publicly spoken on his perspective regarding the ongoing tensions, addressing his relationships with both Quando Rondo and NBA Youngboy and where he believed he stood in all of it.
You don't even know.
All right, all right. Let me get to the bottom.
No, listen.
The whole situation that happened with Quando.
How we live and how we go by, and I'm speaking for the whole Chicago. You ain't there. You weren't there. So you made a diss and said something about Vaughn. That's why I don't with you. You ain't did shit. You did zero. In reality, it just happened the way it happened. Like it ain't had nothing to do with age and none of that shit. It just.
Durk had previously addressed the situation publicly, speaking on what went down with Quando Rondo and how Chicago viewed the entire fallout. He made it clear that people on the outside weren't there and didn't understand the reality of what happened. According to him, the diss lines cross a line because they referenced King Von, and that alone shifted how he felt. In his words, things didn't play out because of age, clout, or politics. It simply unfolded the way it did, with no deeper motive attached. But here's the part that truly sent shockwaves through the streets and had everyone, from the hood to the suburbs, talking non-stop. The leaks this case is built on didn't come from outsiders. They allegedly came from inside the circle itself. Multiple cooperating witnesses, including at least one individual who prosecutors say chose to work with federal authorities to avoid a potential 12-year prison sentence, have provided detailed testimony about the alleged bounties, the shootings, and how the organization supposedly moved behind the scenes. In a culture where loyalty is everything and cooperating with law enforcement is viewed as the ultimate betrayal, this level of internal cooperation represents a major and unprecedented shift. The most damaging details didn't come from rivals or speculation, but from people who were once part of Durk's inner circle, individuals who were expected to ride until the end. Their testimony now forms the backbone of the government's case surrounding the alleged $1 million bounty. Lil Tim also spoke publicly about how he handled the situation mentally, knowing there were allegedly people out there trying to collect on him.
So it's like, I'm gonna stand on my 10, I'm gonna stand my ground, so it's like, you could try to do what you're trying to do, but is you gonna be able to go get your money? Like, is you gonna be able to make it back home? Is you ever gonna be able to see the $1 million? Like, you could try though, and that would be just your dumb choice. But it's like, it ain't that sweet. It ain't just like that. But I just looked at it like, shit, that's their opinion. That what he say. Oh well, like.
To really understand how things reached this point and why $1 million bounty was allegedly placed, we have to rewind to that night in Atlanta and break down exactly what happened, who was involved, and why this single moment ignited years of violence, retaliation, and bloodshed that still echoes today. King Von wasn't just another up-and-coming drill rapper chasing clout. Not even close. He was Lil Durk's protege, signed directly to the Only the Family collective, and he embodied everything OTF represented in the streets of Chicago. His music was raw, unfiltered, and deeply autobiographical in a way few artists could replicate. Von rapped about the streets because he actually lived that life and survived those experiences firsthand. His past was marked by serious legal trouble dating back to his youth, including a 2014 case where he was charged with first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder following a shooting at a birthday party that left 19-year-old Malcolm Stuckey dead. Von spent more than 3 years locked up in Cook County Jail awaiting trial before being acquitted of all charges in December 2017 due to insufficient evidence. When Durk officially introduced Von to the world through OTF, the bond between them was unmistakable. That was his day one, his brother from the same trenches, someone he'd known since they were both coming up in the struggle.
Why you want to sign King Von?
Cause he got a whole story behind him. You know what I'm saying? He from O Block.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That should speak for itself. Nah. But you know what I'm saying? He just real. You know what I'm saying? His music, just real. You know what I'm saying? It's my brother, twin.
That brotherhood, the unbreakable bond between them, was about to be tested in the most devastating way imaginable. On the night of November 6, 2020, King Von's crew and Quando Rondo's camp both happened to be in Atlanta for completely different reasons. Von had been out celebrating, performing, and turning up earlier that night, including making an appearance at Opium nightclub to enjoy the moment and his success. Quando Rondo, meanwhile, was posted at Monaco Hookah Lounge with his people, including his longtime right-hand man, Timothy Lil Tim Leaks, who had been riding with him for years. According to multiple accounts, word reached Von after the party rap that Rondo was at the lounge, and that information allegedly pushed him to pull up and confront him directly. What happened next would change everything and spark a chain reaction that's still unfolding years later. Surveillance footage later recovered shows Von approaching Rondo's group in the parking lot around 3:15 a.m. Von initiated the encounter by striking Rondo while he was seated in a vehicle, catching him off guard. What some witnesses initially described as a one-on-one or a simple fistfight quickly spiraled out of control. As the confrontation escalated and more people jumped in, firearms were drawn and the situation exploded into chaos. From the passenger seat of Rondo's vehicle, Lil Tim fired multiple shots, striking Von. Panic erupted as people scattered in every direction. 6 individuals were shot during the chaos, and 3 lives were lost that night, including King Von, who was later pronounced dead at Grady Memorial Hospital. In the aftermath, Lil Tim would speak publicly about the incident, describing the impossible position he believed he was placed in during those moments.
All right, here we go. Today we have Lil Tim, who's most known for protecting his friend Quando Rondo with deadly force when Quando was attacked unprovoked by King Von in Atlanta in 2020. When we first spoke a couple years ago, Tim was still being charged for the shooting, so I waited until all the charges were dropped before reaching out for an interview.
Timothy Leaks was initially arrested and charged with felony murder in connection with King Von's death. However, in March 2023, those charges were dismissed after prosecutors concluded the shooting qualified as self-defense under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law. Quando Rondo himself was never charged in the case, as investigators determined the evidence supported his camp's claim that they were responding to Von's aggression and acting in defense. But in the world King Von and Lil Durk came from, legal rulings didn't carry the same weight they do in a courtroom. The streets operate by a different code altogether, one that doesn't recognize court decisions or prosecutorial discretion. According to federal prosecutors, Durk allegedly held Rondo responsible for Von's death regardless of who pulled the trigger or how the courts ruled. In that mindset, the blame didn't shift and the loss demanded retaliation. The grief Durk experienced after Von's death was real and visible to anyone who followed him closely.